Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, and we got a special guest with us for this episode of Inside the Birds because we're getting so close to the draft. We bring in from InsideTheBirds.com Andrew DiCecco, but no, not too early do our annual NFL mock draft. We had a better idea. We are going to have Andrew DiCecco break down his Eagles mock draft, Eagles 3.0 mock draft, which is up on our website, InsideTheBirds.com right now. So you can catch all the picks that he makes for the Eagles here. Andrew, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you.
Good to be with you guys, as always.
So we thought this would be a great idea because we spend so much time usually on these weeks leading up to the draft going through the first round pick, or in this case, first round picks this year for the Eagles. But an episode like this where we go through your mock draft and you are as in tune to the day 2 or day 3 guys as anybody I've ever met who do the draft would help us also kind of get a preview of what the Eagles will be looking at, like areas that they prioritize, good prospects who will be available or should be or could be available to the Eagles on day 2 and day 3, which, as we all know, that's the crux of a draft. I mean, you come out with 5, 6, 7, 8 picks. Most of them are going to be from day 2 or day 3. That's just how the math works. So now I will say this must have been this must be the most interesting year for you to do Eagles mock drafts because of their lack of a 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick. Has that been sort of odd to just go from who you think they're getting and who you think they might target in the 3rd round to all the way to the 7th?
Incredibly weird and difficult to navigate.
I bet. So it'll be fun. It'll be a good time, and we'll go through all the picks that you have for the Eagles, which is they have 6 picks, 6 players that you have targeted for the team. We'll go through that and make a good time of it. This is, by the way, something that we should probably do every year, just like we do our annual NFL first round mock draft, which, Adam, we will do. That will be what, next week on Monday, right? The 23rd?
Yeah. It'll drop. Yeah,
24th.
Can't wait. We'll have more information. We'll get some final words on guys who are or not on their draft board due to off-field stuff or injuries or something like that. That's usually when we get a good idea, not only of the Eagles, because we do the whole league. So we'll go over kind of where we hear, because we know a ton of people are not Eagle fans that are listening. So we always try to give you guys help with players, depending on whatever scheme that your team runs. But obviously this one is Eagles focused.
Of course. And of course, Andrew, you will, I would imagine, be available for us to do that pod. And
Sure.
We do every year our NFL first round mock draft pod.
Yeah, man, it's the best time of the year.
It is the best time of the year. And then, of course, we also have with us Greg Cosell, who'll be a big part of our draft coverage. His latest intel with Greg Cosell that ran last Wednesday was on running backs, and really interesting stuff, Adam and Andrew, on the running back position. This is a good class of running backs. It's pretty deep. It's diverse. You got guys who can do a whole bunch of different things. We know that there's a whole lot of speculation and discussion about whether the Eagles would really pull the trigger on Bijan Robinson in the first round. Adam, I thought that Greg was, pretty interesting on Bijan, what he had to say about his overall skill set.
Yeah, but I love his reasoning, guys, whether they should or shouldn't draft him. He explains, because he knows a lot of people work for the Eagles over the years, so he knows the way they think. And he's not a mock drafter. He doesn't make picks for teams, but he knows their philosophy. So I thought he did a phenomenal job of explaining why they shouldn't draft him, just based on that philosophy, but also taking into account what you just said, how incredibly gifted this kid is. It's a fascinating discussion, because people say how he will never do it. Yeah, the chances are highly against them drafting a running back at number 10. But if you can't get out, you have to make a pick. And it would be fascinating to see if he's the best player on the board, which he probably would be if he makes it 10, where they pull the trigger.
Yes, definitely. It'll be a fascinating look. Now, I imagine, Andrew, you kept that in mind when you did your mock draft, that Bijan Robinson could be there along with some other prospects.
I sure did, man. I get the question almost every day about Bijan Robinson. You think the Eagles are going to take him? I was like, no, I don't. my stance hasn't changed.
Yeah, I think we're all I would say this, we're all in agreement that we think it's very, very unlikely. We never slam the door on anything, but I would also feel like I agree with things that Greg and Daniel Jeremiah have said. They've made a really good rational case for why a good team like the Eagles that has a lot of components in place could benefit from taking a running back that good at 10, as opposed to a horrible team like when the Giants took Saquon Barkley and basically wasted the first 3 or 4 years of his career while they were still horrible. There were some interesting benefits to being really good like the Eagles are, or at least on paper, right? And theoretically, they'll be good again. And then adding a player, a dynamic weapon like that to what you have, and then getting his best years at the same time that you're having your best years, which doesn't always happen a lot. Usually teams picking in the top 10 aren't ready to compete for a Super Bowl. So it's sort of an interesting confluence that I think makes it a good discussion, but we're all in the same boat where I guess we're all from Missouri, right? You got to show me to you know, isn't the Missouri the show me state? You got to show
Correct.
me before I believe it.
It's been 40 years. Michael Haddock was the last time we took a pure running back in the first round. That's incredible.
Yeah.
What's going to happen first? The Eagles take a safety in the first round, a top 15, or a running back first?
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there.
I couldn't put out. I don't think Vegas could put odds on that.
No, it would not be in the minuses. It would definitely be in the pluses. All right, so on the next Intel with Greg Cosell, it's going to drop Wednesday at 6 a.m. That one we're going to cover wide receivers, especially some good slot receivers we'll get to, the first round wide receivers, and then any of the sort of, it's our leftover episode, any of the other positions that Greg didn't get to, some of the prospects that we had already profiled onto positions we had already profiled. So we'll get to that as well. Wednesday night, we got Adam's Discord chat with our Patreon subscribers. So you can obviously sign up at patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to be a part of that. And then also we'll be doing our live Q&A with Patreon subscribers coming up on April 25th at 8 p.m., which is basically 2 days before the first round of the draft. And we know people are going to have a ton of questions, a lot of discussion points. What's that?
Yeah, probably going out for that one. Yeah, that. Yeah, definitely. You said it's 2 days before the draft, and we get a lot of information. So in fact, that one we'll update our Monday show. Obviously, we're doing that mock draft, and we'll have kind of maybe close to the final word of where we think. Everyone, look, we've done the show 5 years. I mean, we get late information. Like no one knew about the AJ Brown trade because they kept it quiet, and obviously it happened during the draft. But there's some stuff we get that's closer to the draft. We may get something that Tuesday. So if we get it, you'll get it on Patreon.
There you go. All right. A reminder that Inside the Birds is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. All right, Andrew, before we get to your mock draft, there was some interesting news that Adam had that he wanted to share, which, again, sort of goes inside what the team is thinking. And I think Adam fans will be happy to hear that they're thinking this way. Why don't you tell them about a transactional news item?
Yeah, although they didn't get him, we're told that they submitted a waiver claim for former Jets punter Braden Mann, who was claimed by the Steelers on Friday. But as you just said, not that we didn't think this would be the case. We all know or knew and know that they have to bring another punter at the very least to compete against Aaron Sipos. He needs competition at the very least. He didn't have a good year. Brett Kern didn't work out, so yes, our understanding is they did put a claim in for Braden Mann. The Steelers beat them because they're ahead in the waiver order. I'd be very surprised if other teams didn't, but that may come out who the other teams were. But we know that the Eagles were one of the teams that submitted a waiver claim.
Braden Mann, okay, I've forgotten, so you'll have to remind me. Has anybody? Go ahead.
He was a 6th rounder with the Jets. He's on the Fine Avers rookie deal, and the thing is, which makes him attractive, there's no guaranteed money. This contract. He's got a big leg. The knock on him is hang time, but he's got a big leg, and it's rare that a punter gets drafted. And so what the Jets did is they brought in veteran punter Thomas Morstead, who was with them a couple years ago, and he's back 2 years later. So, and Morstead, by the way, is 37 years old.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's still around. I feel like he's been around forever. And he has.
Yeah, he has. Now you see this interesting pipeline developing, right? This Jets Steelers symmetry, right? With Andy Weidel in charge of personnel with the Steelers and his buddy Joe Douglas in charge of personnel for the Jets. Who was the safety that was on the Eagles, then the Jets, and is now with Elijah
Riley.
Yeah. And then Herbig is where? Herbig is still with the Jets, right?
He's
No.
Steelers.
With
He's with the
Pittsburgh.
Steelers.
With Pittsburgh.
Nate Herbig?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
with the Steelers.
He's
There you
actually
go.
gonna
So he
compete.
went from the Eagles to the Jets to the Steelers, right?
Crazy, isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
There you go. Good call. It's
Yeah.
the Jets. Yeah, there's a little yeah, it
Little
is kind of
pipeline.
funny. It's so funny because you see these. I know it's not Andy's call technically. He's not the GM. He's a director of player personnel. He's a number 2 man, but he's very close with Omar Khan, the GM of the Steelers. And give Omar credit, he's obviously listening, and you're seeing these players come in who played for the Eagles or who Andy's more than familiar with. And yeah, remember Isaac Seumalo's there with Pittsburgh. It's
Sure,
funny how it
yeah.
works out.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. It's funny because there's this sort of relationship between the Giants and the Steelers through marriage, right? There's a Rooney that's married to a Mara. I think her name is Rooney Mara, right? Isn't that her
Yeah,
name?
you're
Yeah,
right.
she's an actress, right?
Actors, yeah.
Yeah, so those families have kind of been intertwined for a while, and now you see some kind of personnel relationship going on between the Steelers and the Jets because of the main people there. So interesting stuff. All right, we're going to get into Andrew DiCecco's mock draft. Now, this is 3.0 on InsideTheBirds.com. You can also find one, if you want to do the comparison game, which I always think is great, you can find his 1.0 edition, his 2.0 edition, which we'll also get into tonight just to show some differences. And then obviously today, and for as long as it stays alive on the internet, which I'm told is forever, you will be able to find 3.0. We'll get into that first. We're going to pause real quick to hear a word from some of our sponsors. All right. So we will start with your mock draft, Andrew, and Adam and I have some things too. And the first guy is really interesting because Adam and I sort of started talking about him on the last podcast as a guy who's not discussed enough. But in your 2.0 version, you had the Eagles taking Devin Witherspoon, cornerback from Illinois. You have changed that. So at number 10, you have who?
I have Miles Murphy from Clemson. I think he offers the highest floor from every pass rusher not named Will Anderson. And one thing that I really like about him, Geoff, is that he was very consistent and he showed continuous improvement throughout his career. Now, 36 tackles for loss, 18 and a half sacks. Those aren't going to jump off the paper, but I think when you turn on the tape and you see some of the traits and his intangibles that he has, it's really appealing, especially the fact that he's scheme versatile. So I just think that looking at that 10 spot, I don't know that you can definitively say that Devin Witherspoon is the best player there. I think Miles Murphy's a player who not long ago in December and January, he was viewed as a top 8 type of player. And, he's sort of gone under discussed, as you alluded to already, but there's a lot of draft guys that do hold him in high regard. I mean, Tony Pauline, somebody that I work with very closely at Pro Football Network, I think he's inside his top 10 as far as power rankings or player rankings. So, I mean, he is highly regarded.
I remember Greg talking about his athleticism, Adam, that he was a pretty good athlete, had some good get off the ball, and that he was versatile. Did Greg, I had to go back and look, he may have said he felt that maybe Murphy could also move inside on nickel a little bit because he has
I think that he can. He does weigh about 270, and I think he could probably add another 5 pounds. So he does have a lot of scheme versatility, which I alluded to. And I also think that he has one of the quickest first step bursts of any pass rusher in this class.
Yeah, we actually talked about that on a show last week. I was told by a D-line coach that he absolutely sees him playing inside some in nickel. And that's when we talk about Brandon Graham, replacing Brandon Graham's role in 2024. Geez, the years ago by. Wow.
Right.
So yeah, he's an athlete. He's got scheme versatility. Andrew's absolutely right. This is where discussion starts with him, is around 10. Could he go higher? Sure. But the word we got, he's going to go somewhere between 10 and 20. And he would be a fine pick because the Eagles run in multiple front as we know it, which they did last year, but they actually may do a little more under Sean Desai. But the fact of the matter is, you need to be scheme versatile if you can get that. If you're going to pick that high, you love a guy to be able to stand up, play with his hand down, and play inside a nickel. And he's got all that, so that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if they go defensive end here or edge rusher with Miles Murphy, but he does have that versatility, it means they still don't really have an upper tier defensive tackle to go alongside Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox. They have to wait all the way till 30 to pick again, and who knows if it's DT. So if you don't have that interior burst that you used to have with Javon Hargrave, but you have 2 edge already in Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, who you want to have on the field as much as possible, you have an opportunity now to get Murphy in your 4-man rush, because you're going to be in, like you were saying, as you were saying, 4-man usually rush and a
Right.
4-down formation on pass rusher. If Murphy can go inside with Fletcher Cox and be productive, that sounds like pretty good. And even if he starts off slow, well, we know you can do that with Brandon Graham. So it would give the Eagles a lot of optionality there. That some other guys, for example, like a Nolan Smith, perhaps, you could not do that to him. What is he, like
238 or something?
Yeah.
35.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned that, Geoff. The other guy that I was torn between was the other Clemson guy, Brian Brzee, who I love a lot. I really think that he is a raw prospect, but when you turn on the tape, his natural athleticism is just, so apparent. And you can't help but wonder. I mean, he hasn't played a lot of football for obvious reasons. There's been his career's been marred with injuries, and obviously a tragedy struck his family. But I mean, his athleticism and inherent ability is really apparent when you turn the tape on.
Awesome. So listen, I mean, this is why Adam and I said on the last podcast that one guy we hadn't been talking about enough, right, was Myles Murphy. We felt like at 10, it's not a reach. The feedback we get is a really good player. Obviously, the versatility is there. Some good get off an explosion. I think people would like to, as you mentioned, see more sort of production on the stat sheet, but that doesn't always mean anything. It doesn't always, Owe, for example, from Penn State had no sacks that year, and he got drafted in the first round by the Ravens because of his athleticism. But obviously a great Power 5 program there too. So good stuff. And I just wanted to, before we move on to your next pick, Andrew, ask, did you go with Myles Murphy there over Witherspoon because you felt Witherspoon was already going to be off the board, or were you just strictly going with who you felt the Eagles would see as the best available player / positional priority?
I think Witherspoon will actually still be there, Geoff. I took him, given the Eagles' philosophy and how they value the position, and I really do think that he would, in theory, be the 10th best player on the board. Certainly the best pass rusher in that case. I know I've seen some Lucas Van Ness. I think that would be erroneous to think that would be a pick there at 10. I think that'd be overdrafting. I think you could trade down if you really liked him. But again, a guy that hasn't played a ton of football. He's played really 2 years, 26 games or something like that. So
Right. All right. Good stuff. All right. So we'll move now to the 30th overall pick. It's the Eagles' second pick in the first round, and similar but different here. In 2.0, you had them taking one of my favorite prospects personally, Kalijah Cansey, the explosive defensive tackle out of Pitt. Now you stayed defensive tackle, and I got to say, it's another one of my favorite guys, even though he's my rival school. But who do you take here in the second pick in the first round at 30?
I'm going Mozzie Smith. And the more I've watched Kalijah Cansey, as a side note, I'm starting to think that he may even slide out of round 1 and go high end round 2. I just think there's a lot of questions there about if he can be an every down player. He's undersized, doesn't have the measurables that you'd like. So I think that's worth considering. And when I look at somebody like Mozzie Smith, Geoff, 6'3", 332, he does have the power at the point of attack. But I think more importantly and more unique is that he has the quickness, the short area quickness, and he has a little bit of pass rush ability that I don't think really showed in his 3 years. And he doesn't have a whole lot of production really, behind the line of scrimmage and sack production. But I think that if you get him in the right system, like the Eagles, they'll be able to accentuate his skill set because he is immensely athletic. I think he was number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freak list.
Yep.
I mean, he does have a lot of untapped potential. And I think when you look at a player like that at 30, that'd be great value for one. And I think it also allows you to kind of gradually implement him into your system if he's not if you're looking to refine some of his traits there.
Adam, at 30, is Mozzie Smith around for the Eagles?
It's just around there. The only problem with his situation is he was a nose at Michigan, and they need a 3 technique. Now, on Andrew's point, though the numbers don't back it up, the tape is different. The tape shows that explosion. Greg Cosell told us about that. Like he's incredibly explosive. Maybe with coaching at the next level, he learns different technique to be able to be more of a pass rusher. But he's got rare explosion for a guy's size. And he's incredibly strong. In fact, his bench pressure is incredibly, really just impressive. 34 at 225, 2-time, I think, honorable academic All-American. He did have the off the field issue. I'm not getting a real sense it's going to be a problem at the next level. That's the early word we've gotten from clubs. We'll find out later clubs in the draft where the Eagles are on him in terms of that issue. But overall, he's got everything. It's just a matter of whoever drafts him has to feel that he's more than a nose tackle. If he's not, he's probably not going to go in the first round. If he is, if you can move him around, that changes it. I would think based on the skill set, he would be a first round pick.
So let me ask, because Greg said something really interesting. He felt, he said a couple things. I remember asking Greg, why he, because Greg loves Mozzie Smith. He thinks, is it Mazzie or Mozzie, by the way? Mozzie, right?
Mozzie.
Yeah.
Sure.
He said, I asked Greg after his glowing endorsement, why isn't Mozzie Smith considered right up there with Jalen Carter or any other top 10 to 15 defensive tackle? And Greg said, I don't know. The tape shows you that he has the type of athleticism and quickness. And he also said, and I remember this already just from watching a lot of Michigan and Big Ten football, he makes as many tackles sometimes as linebackers do. Usually your DTs open up the lanes for your linebackers, but he is everywhere. So when I see that ability to get that lateral movement, Andrew, that ability to get from sideline to sideline, it makes me think he could play. Listen, he could play the nose. Obviously, he played in Michigan, but maybe you can put him in as a 3 or a 5 tech in that 5-man front, and he'd be fine there. I don't know how great of a pass rusher he'd be. That's something they can ease along, and you see what they'll be able to do. But do you feel like he has the ability to play more than just nose? Because obviously with Jordan Davis there, you need somebody to play.
I do, and what you just alluded to, Geoff, you see the lateral quickness, his ability to sort of run down the line and make plays, his pursuit, his closing speed. I think that would tend to suggest that he can offer more than simply being a nose tackle at the pro level. And I think you get him in the right scheme, and also with around the right coaches, they're going to bring that out of him. I just think he's a really athletic prospect and has a lot more to offer than what maybe you saw at Michigan or what the stats might even indicate.
Yeah, I think it'll be fascinating, guys, if Kalijah Cansey and Mozzie Smith are both available at 30, because I think I'm sure you felt this way too, Andrew. You had him in your mock draft the first time around, but we know what the Eagles look for in first round picks and defensive tackles. They look for the interior explosion. And while you can project, you see it on tape from an athletic standpoint, you see the production though from Cansey on the tape and the stat sheet, right? It's it just makes so much sense for the Eagles to go with Cansey, because that's the type of guy that they like, that upfield explosion, get me sacks from the 3 technique or the 5 tech position. So I think it would be pretty fascinating if both those guys were available. Then we'd get, the answer would be there for us. Did their traditional habits kick in, or did they rely on something they may have seen differently from Mozzie Smith as far as, okay, we didn't see the production in huge sack numbers or whatever, but what we saw we think is even better, and a 3-down player, which Cansey might not be. I think that would be a pretty fascinating case study there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They're both there for sure.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we will get to, so just to recap now, so that's round 1. This is a very Eagles draft, right? The first round, because we've got 2 defensive linemen taken, with Myles Murphy going at 10th overall, and in the same in round 1, 30th overall, Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle from Michigan. All right, we'll go on to your 3rd round pick in a second. Remember, it's Ocean Casino Resort's 5th birthday this summer, and they can't wait to celebrate with you. Join Ocean for exciting promotions and sweepstakes, headline entertainment, the best day life and nightlife lineup in AC, the debut of the birthday bar, exclusive local collabs and partnerships, commemorative 5th birthday merchandise, and so much more. Don't miss stunning fireworks and unique events all summer long. Ocean Rewards members will enjoy over $5 million in gifts and prizes. So be sure to sign up for an Ocean Rewards card to get on the fun next time you visit. A reminder, that's Ocean Casino Resort, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. All right. We will move into round 3 of Andrew DiCecco's.
2.
I'm sorry. Round 2. See, this whole 2 first-round picks thing always has me thrown off with the math. We will move into round 2. So in your 2.0 version, you were looking at the defensive backfield and you went with a safety from Illinois named Sidney Brown. But in version 3.0, final version, you have got a totally different player and totally different position. So tell us about him.
Steve Avila, the guard from TCU, have the Eagles keeping tradition and taking an offensive lineman in the second round. Peter Skoronski from Northwestern has sort of gotten a little bit of interest as far as first round potential for the Eagles, but taking him at 10, I mean, it depends on how you view him. I mean, I see him as a guard. It would only make sense if the Eagles viewed him as the heir apparent for Lane Johnson, in my opinion. So if they think he can be a right tackle, okay, but some of his measurables would seem to indicate that he maybe couldn't. But you could still get a solid guard in round 2 for, preparing for the inevitable changing of the guard there when Cam Jurgens slides over to center. Get Avila there at guard. And I mean, he's just a powerful player. He actually started seasons at left guard and center. So he has the versatility that Jeff Stoutland likes, and just a really pro-ready player who would start for most teams if he wasn't going to the Eagles in this scenario.
What do you think, Adam? Another guard in the second round for the Eagles, huh?
It'd be fine. No, this would be a great pick. Here's why. He starts day 1 at right guard. There would be no competition there. They might say there would be, but we know Avila would be projected to be the starter at right guard because Jurgens has barely played it, and very little snaps. So there you go. There's your starting lineup. And as Andrew said, here's the nice thing. Let's say Kelsey retires after the season. If Jurgens couldn't play a game in 2024, he could slide in there. So that it makes a ton of sense. And you like your second round pick to play right away, and he sure would. No, this makes a ton of sense. And the thing with, as we said on last week's show, if you're going to take the kid from Northwestern, he can only play guard. This is what we've been told by several coaches. He's a guard at the next level. And at 10, the only way you look at it is if you were stuck, you couldn't trade out, and your board was destroyed, you couldn't trade out. That's why you would take him. But other than that, you wouldn't do that.
So is Cam Jurgens going to become the Aaron Rodgers of centers and basically sit behind a legend for however many years it takes before he finally gets a chance to play?
Waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I mean, you do wonder, like quarterbacks, it makes sense. You're willing to take that risk, but are the Eagles willing to let Cam Jurgens, who's on a 4-year deal, not play for the first 2 years of it? When you typically like to extend a guy after year 3. And Mike, the way Jason Kelsey's playing, would you guys be surprised if he played in 2024 along with this year? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, because 3 years ago, I remember we were doing reporting on this, and we talked to both sides. They're like, "Oh, we didn't think he was coming back, but he wanted to play, so we love that he's playing." And again, year after year after year. Now, it would also depend on how he feels. He felt pretty good from what we were told. As we put out whenever he came back, whenever he announced he's come back. The big reason because he felt pretty good, other than he want to get a chance to get another ring and came close. So, no, I hear you on that. You don't want Jurgens to sit, but he's so new to the position. Remember, he's a former tight end who's barely played offensive line. Yes, he's drafted to replace Kelsey, but the thing is, if they drafted Avila, sure, they would say, "Oh, it's an open competition," but we know Avila's got a lot longer time playing offensive line, and you love that he's played 2 positions. And Eagles love guys who play center and guard center, right tackle, or another position. They love the positional versatility.
Yeah. How much center has Avila played?
I think he played 1 season. He started 1 season at center.
Oh man, this and how is his athletic testing? I was trying to find.
Wasn't great. Wasn't great. It's not your typical.
That he's not necessarily an overly athletic lineman. He's more of a power player. But
Gotcha.
The versatility and the plug and play optionality that he provides, I think it'd be difficult to bypass on that, regardless of how they may feel about Jurgens, sitting perhaps for another year.
So he might be more Landon Dickerson than, say, Jurgens. Jurgens was a great athlete who was a transfer from tight end. Dickerson's a road grader. He's just a bully of a road grader who also played center guard and even tackle in college a little bit. But all right, so I really think you made that pick, Andrew, to mess with me because you knew I was excited that you had a second round safety in your 2.0, Sidney Brown, and then you're like, nah, these are the Eagles. Let's just draft a guard in the second round for the 3rd straight year, right? Because that would be Dickerson, Jurgens, and now Avila if this were to come to fruition, right? So this would be a very typical Eagles move. Let's ignore the secondary guys and go with the linemen.
When I was typing it out, I said, "Oh, Jeff's not going to let me hear the end of this one."
Well, that makes a lot of sense. All right, we will move on to your third round pick in your 3.0 version. You had, and I like this pick. It was Tank Bigsby, the bruising running back out of Auburn, and yet again you totally turned the tables here. You went with the other side of the ball in a different position. So who did you take in the third round at pick 31? No,
Well,
31st pick of the third round.
Well, I wanted to go safety here, Geoff. I look at Chris Smith from Georgia, J.L. Skinner from Boise State. But looking at the linebacker situation as it currently is, it's the worst position on the roster right now. They really need some help, and you don't really want to go any further in the draft without addressing that. So in the third round, I have him going Dayon Henley, the linebacker from Washington State. He's 6'1", 225, very athletic. I mean, he began his career at Nevada as a wide receiver and a kick returner. So he's a relatively raw product. I think that he's able to get by with his athleticism and his speed and his ability to play in space. He doesn't necessarily have the discipline or the reactiveness or the instincts that you would like, but I think that that's more of a developmental prospect that they would get in there. I mean, thinking about pairing him next to Kobe Dean, that just gives Sean Desai so much optionality there. And I think he has a skill set that really translates favorably to the current NFL landscape as far as being a coverage linebacker, being able to play in space and having that sideline to sideline range.
His tape, I was told, was so good. I'm not saying he's going to go ahead of Jack Campbell. That would certainly be forward thinking. Can't rule it out, though. Maybe some teams see him better than Campbell, but this kid's movement is so good. He's apparently really smart. Like he played linebacker neighborhood of technically 3 years, but he barely played. The first year he played linebacker, very few snaps. It was 2 years. That was at Nevada, and then he transferred to Washington State.
Yeah,
his tape was so terrific, and he also was in the Senior Bowl. This kid can move. He could cover tight ends. He's just real. For a kid that is new to it, he sees it before it happens. Yeah, he's not going to make every play right because he's new to linebacker, but his tape is so intriguing. I think third rounds, that's probably the earliest he would go, and I think that's honestly it's very possible because again, it's a coverage linebacker. Now he's smaller. Guys, he was 225 at the combine. Hey, that fits in the Eagles. Remember, the kid that they signed from the Bears is 220. And Dean is what, low 230s?
Yeah. Gives him a really, really light second level, but incredibly athletic. And Geoff, he had 109 tackles, 4 sacks. I think he's going to be a terrific blitzer at the next level if utilized properly. So there's a lot to like there. And I think that might be the highest the Eagles are willing to actually address the linebacker position.
Well, let me be the cynic here and say, I'm hearing about another real athletic linebacker who's new to the position, who they're going to take in the third round. Don't they already have that guy in Davion Taylor?
Technically, yes.
But it sounds like this guy's
played
played football a lot longer. Right. He just hasn't played linebacker.
Davion Taylor, just so you understand, Davion Taylor, they didn't even have that. They didn't have close to third round grade on him. That's going back 4 years. They just took him way before he should have gone. Like if he was taken in the 5th or 6th round, you're like, all right, he probably won't make the team. Maybe he'll be a special teamer.
Adam, I had guys. Remember, we were joking because guys were like, I had a few guys who were like, well, we kind of had a priority free agent grade on Dave.
Right? 4 years. Holy smoke! I totally forgot about that.
I had a 5th round grade on him.
Yeah, there you go. So,
all right. Well, so it seems like do you think that he might be available? Here's the problem. I think this is why Andrew did this, right? As we currently do this, and you can only do this knowing what they have now, they don't have a pick until the 7th round after this. Yeah. So while third might be early for him, what are you going to do? Go to the 7th round and not address a position that, as Andrew mentioned, is one of your most weakest positions. And again, the draft is not supposed to be about immediate need, but even down the line, the Eagles don't have, I mean, other than Kobe Dean, who we've never really seen even start, right? Yeah. The Eagles just don't have anyone at the position that you feel really good about 2, 3, 4 years from now.
That certainly played into my decision. And also the fact that, safety is a weakness as well. But as you saw with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the Eagles could always look at someone in the last year of the rookie deal, maybe pull the trigger on a trade late in the offseason or something like that. I don't see them doing that with linebackers. So I didn't want it to go any further without making a move there.
All right, good stuff. See, Andrew, the only thing I care about is how excited I get. And, you went from giving me a safety and a running back to a guard and a linebacker in 3.0. So now I'm like, oh, this sounds like an Eagles draft.
Covers needs. By the way, it's about
It is.
future needs. It's what the draft has always been about. And you Andrew said it. Look, they need a right guard for now in the future, and Avila would cover that. They need now again with Mozzie Smith. It depends on your POV, your point of view. You see him as a nose tackle or the potential to play 3 technique. Miles Murphy, absolutely, DN's a need, and he has positional versatility. And Henley, yeah, they're very late at linebacker with depth and also weight. That's interesting. But this is a great story, and people will laugh at this because you would think all teams do this, but you'd be surprised.
Yeah,
you would think like most teams want super smart kids. Some put less about intelligence, more on athleticism. This kid's got both. Super smart and a big time athlete. He's changed positions, so he checks off a lot of boxes here. And to me, you look at 4 picks. I mean, it's funny. I look at Andrew's first 4 in the last draft. Sidney Brown, who's going to go somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round, who's a really talented safety. Cansey, we've talked about a lot. Who's a 3 technique, which they need. Devin Witherspoon. That one you would have to sit in terms of being a outside corner. He wouldn't play very much. They already have a slot corner, so maybe that wouldn't make a lot of sense. That would be a great value. But if you look at these 4 in Andrew's 3rd mock here, if they took all these guys, they're all playing early. The only issue you got is Mozzie Smith a 3 or is he a note?
Right.
Mozzie, I might eat my words later on this, but I've watched him a lot, so I'm no expert, but he may have some Vita Vea in him. He might. Just
pretty good player, by the way.
Yeah. And listen, Vita Vea, what he went like 14th overall, I think, but he could play multiple spots. He was explosive, totally clean character and everything like that. Came from a strong program. Washington puts out a lot of good defensive players, but Mozzie may have. Maybe he doesn't have the same production that Vita had at Washington, but he certainly athleticism, like you said, the freak. I want to. That's amazing, by the way. What's his list called? Bruce Feldman's freak list or
freak list? Yeah.
Yeah. If you accomplish nothing in life, but you get on Bruce Feldman's freak list, that's got to count for something, I would say.
Yeah, because he's talking to schools, guys. I'm just gonna say he's talking to the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either a coach or someone in like football operations or he's seen the tape, or he could have talked to an NFL person. But when you're on that freak list, that means you're incredibly gifted. And there's a lot to like about Mozzie Smith. So there are 2 picks left in this mock.
2 picks left, both in the 7th round. We'll get to them in a second. First, we'll remind you to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com. And on Twitter, it's at phlsportsnation. We'll also pause real quick for a word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. Andrew, have you gotten a car yet from Sky Motor Cars?
Not yet. It's
got to work
list.
on a deal.
I've done too. Yeah, I've actually sold through my wife and I sold 2 cars for them. And when you talk about a great deal, they're a pleasure to deal with. If you check out their ratings, I kind of joke, like you see 500 of them, like 480 or 490 or 5-star. So people love going back there. Remember the place where the pros go. A lot of Eagles, current and former Eagles, go back to Sheldon Brown.
Wow.
Marcus Peters, the veteran corner. Who else? They've got some other guys locally. I know Landon Dickerson got his card, by the way.
Yeah. They got some nice sports cars. I can see Andrew in like an 80s IROC type of
Oh, I love it.
IROC Camaro.
See, I know Andrew. Trust me. Look at the background. There, right?
Yeah,
the Def Leppard guy, he's an Iron Maiden guy, or all, the airband guys. He's got to have an IROC. It would go perfect.
It's always right. It's always right, Geoff.
I agree. All right, let's get to your 7th round picks. They have an early one and a late one. So the first pick in the 7th round in your last mock draft, you had a wide receiver from Arkansas named Matt Landers, not to be confused with Ned Flanders. And this time around, you have, oh, you're getting me excited.
Well, Geoff, you get your safety in this scenario. Anthony Johnson Jr. from Iowa State. He was a 3-year starter at corner, transitioned to safety last year. Very versatile player, has a lot more physicality than you would normally see from a converted corner. I think that his ability to play in any scheme is pretty. I think that's a good indicator of what he's able to do. Really athletic player, can play in space, is a willing tackler in the box. So I think right there you're drafting. He's a raw prospect. So I mean, obviously that's why you're finding him there in the 7th round. But I think that he does offer some intangibles that you could develop for the future. He's a project player, but I think day one he could step in there and be a core special teams performer for the Eagles, which is really what you're asking for in the 7th round. You're more apt to swing the bat on some of these late round flyers, and I think he has some upside.
I would be very surprised if he lasted. A couple reasons. Eagles coaching staff has ties to Iowa State. To draft him, definitely, because just overall, because they know that they probably are familiar with him based on the coaches that Sirianni knows at Iowa State. But the big thing is here, what I understand is his ability to assimilate to safety was really good. The rounds I've been given for him are 4 or 5. See if he gets out of the 5th. No, to get to the 7th, it would surprise me because, and I get it, as you said, he's only played it 1 year. He's got good enough size. He's well built. Runs in the 4.5s. You like him to run the 4.4. That's okay. Yeah, he's a safety.
Yeah, he's 6 foot 205. Good size.
Yeah. He's just under 5'11", 5'8" at the combine. 205, as you said. This is a good one, Andrew. I'd be surprised if he made it to the 7th. If he makes it to the 7th, they better turn that card in immediately. That would be great. I
think the reason my thinking there, Adam, was that he's relatively, well, he's new to the position, but he's also relatively raw. So I think that you might see a team that might cause him to tumble down the board, and then you might see somebody willing to take a flyer on him late and sort of hone those skills.
Is he entering the NFL draft as a safety, or are some teams, Adam or Andrew, looking at him as maybe like a Tampa 2 style corner?
My understanding is that he's safety.
Okay,
that's all I knew about him, because I asked about safeties to some guys, and because Eagles badly need a developmental safety in the worst way. Blankenship is going to be a good backup for them, but they need someone who they could grow with as a starter after the season. Again, the draft is about the future, and they really need to get someone in there at some.
Right. So it sounds like this guy, Anthony Johnson, is sort of more of a box safety right now, even though he has played corner, so he can run a little bit, right? He's a bit, well, you described him as kind of a physical, hard-hitting guy, right?
Well, he's more physical than you would expect from someone who played the cornerback position, and I think he's sort of really integrated well to the safety position. I think that he can play. He can come down and play in the box, but I think he's probably best equipped right now to play on the back end in coverage.
One more thing. His vert was really good. His vertical at the combine was really good, 37.5, but his broad jump was 10.5. For a guy who's not fast, you like his lower body explosion. That's really good to know. Andrew's right. He's got to work on some stuff, but there's so much in him. He's another smart guy, by the way. This is another guy that you want to take a look at late and just work him into your system.
Team captain. Yeah, definitely. All right, Anthony Johnson, the safety of Iowa. So the last pick in the 7th round, Andrew, when I looked at your mock draft, this final 3.0, honestly, I kept thinking this is such an Eagles draft. I mean, it's of all your drafts, this one really sort of took on the personality of what the Eagles do. Traditionally, from guarding the 2nd round to getting that 3rd round linebacker and later round safety. But in your 2.0, you had them taking the Utah linebacker, Mohamed Diabate. Is it, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, Diabate, yeah.
Diabate, but you have in 3.0 a much different type of player. So tell us who you picked.
Yeah, Malik Cunningham, the quarterback from Louisville. I think when you look at this late in the draft, you're swinging the bat and you're going for upside, and I think he offers that. You're getting a somebody that's going to go in there and push in book for the 3rd quarterback job, and see if you can refine some of his skill set. He has a lot of inherent traits. He scored 50 touchdowns as a runner, threw for nearly 10,000 yards as a passer, and I think he shattered Lamar Jackson's overall touchdown record for Louisville, 120. So there's a lot to like there. He does have a slight build. He's 6 foot, about 190, and his deep ball accuracy is not what you'd like. His accuracy in general is really spotty. But I think if you get him into a camp, he could be one of those guys that has some intriguing, ability. And we'll see if Brian Johnson and Alex Tandy can get that out of him.
Adam, did you see Malik throw at the combine? Were you still there at the time?
I was, but I didn't see him throw. But here's what here's what you need to know about this kid's ability to help them. He ran for over 3,000 yards at Louisville. And they love Ian Book because he's also an athlete. Like look at Mariota, another example. Isn't it interesting? Andrew talks about this kid, Cunningham. Mariota, obviously, Chip Kelly's guy. Chip wanted him because he fit the system that Chip was running at Oregon. He wanted his quarterback to be able to run. Mariota can do it. Ian Book could run. It's just funny. To me, that's the future. And by the way, that way, if their long-term backup to Hurts is a guy that is younger, you like that guy to be able to run the same system. We get it. No one's Hurts that should be throwing the football. Hurts is obviously a very good running style, but you'd like to be able to keep the same belief you could still run a lot with that quarterback, and this would do it.
I was asking if you saw him throw because I thought at the combine, and again, you're throwing against air, so I don't put it.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about accuracy or anything like that, but I thought he actually showcased a pretty big arm, both on they had they throw the square outs, but then they throw the deep sideline by the number as well. And I thought his throwing motion just looked very smooth, Andrew, and that he for a guy you said who doesn't have the hugest frame, I thought he had pretty good arm strength.
How is the deep ball accurate? The accuracy to me is the biggest area of concern. I think that he's offered glimpses of promise as a passer. Obviously, he's electric as a runner. But man, you get that guy in your system and for a summer and see what you can get out of him, because I do think he has tools that are worth developing.
Yeah, definitely.
Senior, fifth-year senior, which is awesome.
Right. Yeah, you get him in the offense, you get the schemed reads out, the RPOs, you kind of get him in a good motion, you see what he can do there. I think what you said to lead off the statement on him was 100% true. Is when you get to the 7th round, you're swinging, right? You're swinging for the fences on traits. And we know the Eagles do that a lot, especially the last 5 or 6 years. Guys like the wide receivers that they've taken in the late rounds who can run. Quez Watkins, who's the kid who was on the team for a couple of years and went to the Chargers, like a Boise State kid, Hightower, a guy who can run, right? They've taken linebackers who can run. They even in rookie free agents, they're always looking for guys who either have big, good measurables like Grimes from Florida when they signed him, the wide receiver, right? Or guys who can run and have great traits.
Jordan Mailata is perhaps the best example of taking a shot in the dark on intangibles.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that kid? Oh, he hurt his knee, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. Did he ever surface in any other league? I haven't really heard anything about it.
He got a knee injury, and I know fans were loving that when they.
Oh my God, there were people who swore he was going to be the Eagles' #1 wide receiver.
They said he was going to be the number 4. He was better than this guy.
Oh my gosh, it almost got to Henry Josie level a little bit too early. I mean, he hadn't even played yet, and everybody was telling us he was going to be a 5-time Pro Bowler.
It is funny though. You look at Ian Book, ran for 1,500 yards. This kid Cunningham would make total sense. What a good value there is. In the 7th round, because he had ran for over 3,000 yards. Mariota was obviously a freak at Oregon running the football. Acceleration. We know he's had a lot of injuries, but it's just funny how they stayed true to what this scheme and the way they use Hurts. All his backups can run.
Yeah. Hey, before we end this, I want to ask you, because you chose the quarterback here, if there were any other quarterbacks 7th round that either had traits or something that you like that you were kind of also considering at that spot.
Late 6, early 7. I like Jake Haener from Fresno a lot. I think that he's somebody that's really been a consistent performer throughout his career, played a lot of football, but I don't think he would even be in the conversation there. I think he would go before then. Clayton Tune is a player that you and I, we talked about, and I put him in mock draft 1.0. I thought that he was an interesting player there, but I think Malik Cunningham just his traits and his upside and athleticism is really what appealed to me there.
Awesome. Great stuff. I really enjoyed doing this episode. I think it's enlightening. I'm glad we got a chance to spend time previewing prospects who could be there day 2, day 3. And even if the Eagles don't take any of those guys, we sort of, I think, had a really good, strong conversation on why players at that position, based on the history of this franchise drafting, would make a whole lot of sense. So it's a really good discussion. By the way, have the Eagles ever taken someone that you had in your mock draft? I think you have, right?
I don't. Oh, Jordan Davis. I had Jordan Davis last year.
You did have Jordan Davis,
nice.
But before that, I'm sure that they have. I just can't recall.
I could have sworn there was a guy like in the 5th or 6th round, whether it was a linebacker or somebody that you once had in your mock draft, and the Eagles took him about a year or 2 ago. But
I know. Yeah, yeah, you'd have to check. But I definitely maybe it was Milton. No, I wrote about Milton Williams before. I don't remember. I can't remember.
That sounds like
it was Milton Williams. You had him in one of your mock drafts.
Did I
remember that?
Okay. It was Milton.
Yes,
it was Milton Williams.
What did you like about him? Do you remember?
I had him as a mid-round prospect, but I liked his pass rush upside, and I liked his short area quickness and his athleticism, and I thought that he fit the prototype of what the Eagles were going to look for. Obviously, he had the shorter arms, so that was the big deterrent there, but I thought he fit the bill as somebody that they would look for.
And Geoff had that note, and boy, that was spot on about how Gannon was not really concerned with size. He just wanted guys who fit their scheme. And Milton Williams, as you said, Hender's the perfect guy. He never fit like when Jim Washburn was here and other D-line coaches and Chip Kelly did. They had to have the length, but not to the Eagles' credit. Like if they would have gone by the old rules, Milton Williams would never be an Eagle. And he's been a really good story as a third D tackle.
Yeah. And right now he is competing to be the starter next to Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox. I mean, we've got a long way to go here, and we'll see what happens. But right now, he would be probably the lead candidate, don't you think? I don't think the Contavious Street would be a candidate.
I don't know. You say that. I don't know how they're viewed, because based on our intel here, they've always felt he was a really good 3. Now, do they see him as a guy who's better on 20, 25 snaps, or a guy who could be better on 40, 50? I would think fewer snaps because he's explosive. And don't forget, certain situations he could play DN. He has lined up at DN. But I'm interested to see Contavious Street in the scheme. We put some good tape together last year. And then obviously Jordan Davis, see what kind of shape he comes in. Cox on a 1-year deal, and then True Pelotu, no else. And obviously they need to add one more guy, and what round that comes in. It would be interesting to see, though, if they drafted Cansey just to close this, because you heard Greg Cosell talk about this when we did DTAC a couple weeks ago. I don't say Greg was foaming at the mouth, but he goes, "Oh my God, you always know, folks know when Greg likes a player, he doesn't really hide it." That kid, his ability to get off the football is ridiculous, but he doesn't fit what you're looking for in a height situation and arm length. But man, is he explosive.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We'll finish with this. If you don't think a defensive lineman, is a 3-down lineman, it's hard to justify taking him in the first round. So
look at last year. Look at last year, for
example. Well, yeah, that's a great point.
It's yet to be determined, but
you don't think he projects to be. I think the Eagles project it out of Jordan Davis.
Fair, because they're going to be. You see this. There's always a reason why guys who go late in the first round, there's some warts you'll have.
Sure.
Typically, it's either size, not fast enough, but you love the tape, off the field, injury history, whatever it may be. But Cansey is so much fun. I cannot wait to see where he goes.
Awesome. Great discussion, guys. Andrew, thank you. Really appreciate your time with us. We'll see you again next week when we do our NFL first round or annual NFL first round mock draft, which is annually one of our most watched and most listened to podcasts a year. So we get very excited for that, and always good to catch up with you, Andrew. So for Andrew DiCecco and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching another Inside the Birds. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.